Yeah, hi. This is Benny, the dragon here, and I was hoping to talk to J.M. Barrie about, the J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, James M. Barrie. Uh, I'm serious. I just have a couple thoughts on his book, Peter Pan, and I was really hoping I could, just chat with him a bit about it. I don't understand why you're laughing. I really want to talk to him. I'm gonna need you to stop laughing here. Hello? Hello? Weird, they just started laughing and hang up. Oh, hey everybody! Welcome back to Storytime Theatre. My name is Benny, and I will be your storyteller today. Now, we are on the final chapter of Peter Pan by James M. Barrie. And whoa, it's been a long time coming, y'all. Quick recap for those of you that missed the last chapter. Chapter 16. Woo! So much happened. Wendy, John, and Michael made it back to London. And that's it. So, we are going to move right on ahead with our final chapter of Peter Pan, chapter 17, When Wendy Grew Up. I hope you want to know what became of the other boys. They were waiting below to give Wendy time to explain about them, and when they had counted 500, they went up. They went up by the stair because they thought this would make a better impression. They stood in a row in front of Mrs. Darling with their hats off, and wishing they were not wearing their pirate clothes. They said nothing, but their eyes asked her to have them. They ought to have looked at Mr. Darling also, but they forgot about him. Of course, Mrs. Darling had at once said she would have them, but Mr. Darling was curiously depressed, and they saw that he considered 6 a rather large number. "I must say," he said to Wendy, "that you don't do things by halves." A grudging remark which the twins thought was pointed at them. "Aww, buddies." The first twin was the proudest one, and he asked, flushing, "Do you think we should be too much of a handful, sir? Because we can go away if so." "Father!" Wendy cried, shocked, but still the cloud was on him. He knew he was behaving unworthily, and he could not help it. "We could double up," said Nibs. "I always cut their hair myself," said Wendy. "George!" Miss Darling exclaimed, pained to see her dear one showing himself in such an unfavorable light. Then he burst into tears, and the truth came out. He was as glad to have them as she was, he said, but he thought they should have asked his consent as well as hers, instead of treating him as a cipher in his own house. "I don't think you are a cipher," Toodles cried instantly. "Do you think he's a cipher, Curly?" "No, I don't. Do you think he's a cipher, Slightly?" "Rather not. Twins, do you think—" It turned out that not one of them thought him a cipher, and he was absurdly gratified, and said he would find a space for them all in the drawing room if they fitted in. "We'll fit in, sir," they assured him. "Then follow my leader," he cried gaily. "Mind you, I'm not sure that we have a drawing room, but we pretend we have, and it's all the same. Hoopla!" He went off dancing through the house, and they all cried, "Hoopla!" and danced after him, searching for the drawing room. It just sounds like a lot of hoopla to me. If you get that reference, comment below. As for Peter, he saw Wendy one more time before he flew away. He did not exactly come to the window, but he brushed against it in passing so that she could open it if she liked, and called to him. That is what she did. "Hello, Wendy." "Goodbye," he said. "Oh dear, are you going away?" Yes.
You don't feel, Peter, she said flatteringly, that you would like to say anything to my parents about a very sweet subject?
No.
About me, Peter?
No. Miss Darling came to the window, for at present she was keeping a sharp eye on Wendy. She told Peter that she had adopted all the other boys and would like to adopt him also. Would you send me to school? He inquired craftily.
Yes.
And then to an office?
I suppose so.
Soon I should be a man.
Very soon.
I don't want to go to school and learn solemn things, he told her passionately. I don't want to be a man. Wendy's mother, if I was to wake up and feel there was a beard...
Peter,
said Wendy the comforter,
I should love you in a beard.
And Mrs. Darling stretched out her arm to him, but he repulsed her. Oh, Wendy. Here's the thing, y'all. Yes, I see Wendy loves him, and, Peter has some, weird feelings towards her, and it would be, real cute to, ship them and want them to be together. But here's the thing. It'd be weird having the boyfriend live in the house. Especially at the age of, 10? It's a little off. But that's a personal thing, I guess. Keep back, lady. No one is going to catch me and make me a man.
But where are you going to live?
With Tink, in the house we built for Wendy. The fairies are to put it high among the treetops where they sleep at nights.
How lovely,
cried Wendy so longingly that Mrs. Darling tightened her grip. I thought all the fairies were dead, Miss Darling said.
There were always a lot of young ones, explained Wendy, who was now quite an authority. Because you see, when a new baby laughs for the first time, a new fairy is born. And as there are always new babies, there are always new fairies. And they live in nests in the top of trees, and mauve ones are boys, and white ones are girls, and blue ones are just little sillies who are not sure what they are.
Oh my gosh, wow. Look at James M. Barrie with some gender theory here. I shall have such fun, said Peter with one eye on Wendy.
It will be rather lonely in the evening, she said, sitting by the fire.
I shall have Tink. Tink can't go a 20th part of the way round, she reminded him a little tartly. It doesn't matter, Peter said.
Oh, Peter, you know it matters.
Well then, come with me to the little house.
May I, Mummy?
Certainly not.
I have got you home again. I mean to keep you. But he does so need a mother. So do you, my love.
Oh, all right, Peter said, as if he had asked her from politeness merely, but Mrs. Darling saw his mouth twitch, and she made this handsome offer, to let Wendy go with him for a week every year to do his spring cleaning. Wendy would have preferred a more permanent arrangement, and it seemed to her that spring would be long in coming, but this promise sent Peter away quite gay again. He has no sense of time, and was so full of adventure that all I have told you is only about a halfpenny worth of him. I suppose it was because Wendy knew this that her last words to him were rather plaintive ones.
You won't forget me, Peter, will you? Before spring cleaning comes.
Of course, Peter promised, and then he flew away. Of course, all the boys went to school. Before they had attended school a week, they saw what goats they had been knocked to remain on the island. But it was too late now, and soon they settled down to being as ordinary as you or me or Jenkins McGee. In time, they could not even fly after their hats. Want of practice, they called it. But what it really meant was that they no longer believed. Michael believed longer than the other boys, though they jeered at him. So he was with Wendy when Peter came for her at the end of the first year.
She flew away with Peter in the frock she had woven from leaves and berries in Neverland. And her one fear was that he might notice how short it had become. But he never noticed. He had so much to say about himself. She had looked forward to thrilling talks with him about old times, but new adventures crowded his mind. "Who's Captain Hook?" he asked with interest when she spoke of the arch-enemy. "Don't you remember?" she asked, amazed. "How you killed him and saved all of our lives?" "I forget them after I kill them," he replied carelessly. "Wow, that is savage. Also, that's a pretty impressive skill. Also shows how much you actually care about anyone but yourself." When she expressed a doubtful hope that Tinkerbell would be glad to see her, he said, "Who's Tinkerbell?" "Oh, Peter," she said, shocked, but even when she explained, he could not remember. "There are such a lot of them," he said. "I expect she's no more." Wendy was pained, too, to find that the past year was but as yesterday to Peter. It had seemed such a long year of waiting to her, but he was exactly as fascinated as ever. And they had a lovely spring cleaning in the little house in the treetops. Wow. So far, spring cleaning, not a great time. It's only been a year. The Lost Boys can't fly. They've forgotten everything. They don't believe in anything. And Peter's forgotten about Hook and Tinkerbell, and that's just sad. Next year, he did not come for her. She waited in a new frock because the old one simply would not meet, but he never came. Peter came next spring cleaning, and the strange thing was he never knew he had missed a year. That was the last time the girl, Wendy, ever saw him. For a little longer, she tried for his sake not to have growing pains. And she felt she was untrue to him when she got a prize for general knowledge. But the years came and went without bringing the careless boy. And when they met again, Wendy was a married woman. And Peter was no more to her than a little dust in the box in which she had kept her toys. All the boys were grown up and done for by this time, so it is scarcely worthwhile saying anything more about them. Wendy was married in white with a pink sash. Years rolled on, and Wendy had a daughter. She was called Jane. Always had an odd, inquiring look, as if from the moment she arrived on the mainland she wanted to ask questions. When she was old enough to ask them, they were mostly about Peter Pan. She loved to hear of Peter, and Wendy told her all that she could remember in the very nursery from which the famous flight had taken place. "Oh, look at that! We got a Wendy 2.0 going on!" We love Jane, except Wendy's actually, entertaining this thought of Peter Pan. Why? Because conspiracy theory time here. I think Wendy never stopped loving Peter, and this is just a giant cover-up. She got married and had a kid, and secretly she just wants to get back with Peter. But that's the tea. You didn't hear it from me. There were only 2 beds in the nursery now, Jane's and her nurse's. And there was no kennel, for Nana had also passed away. Once a week, Jane's nurse had the evening off, and then it was Wendy's part to put Jane to bed. And that was the time for stories. It was Jane's invention to raise the sheet over her mother's head and her own, thus making a tent. And in the awful darkness to whisper, "What do we see now?" "I don't think I see anything tonight," says Wendy, with a feeling that if Nana were here, she would object to further conversation. Yes, you do," says Jane. "You see when you were a little girl." "That is a long time ago, sweetheart," said Wendy. "Oh me, how time flies." "Does it fly?" asked the artful child. "The way you flew when you were a little girl?" "The way I flew? Do you know, Jane, I sometimes wonder whether I ever did really fly." "Yes, you did." "The dear old days when I could fly." "Why can't you fly now, Mother?" Because I am grown up, dearest. When people grow up, they forget the way. Why do they forget their way? Because they are no longer gay and innocent and heartless. It is only the gay and innocent and heartless who can fly.
I know a lot of people who could probably fly. Gay, innocent, heartless. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Shoot, if they can all fly, they are holding out on me.
What is gay and innocent and heartless? Do I wish I was gay and innocent and heartless?
Or perhaps Wendy admits she does see something.
I do believe, she says, that it is this nursery. I do believe it. Go on, Jane said.
They are now embarked on the great adventure of the night when Peter flew in looking for his shadow. Then one night came the tragedy. It was the spring of the year, and the story had been told for the night, and Jane was now asleep in her bed. Wendy was sitting close on the floor, very close to the fire, so as to see to darn, for there was no other light in the nursery. And while she sat darning, she heard a crow. Then the window blew open, as of old, and Peter dropped to the floor. He was exactly the same as ever, and Wendy saw at once that he still had all his little teeth. Again, with the first teeth! We are at the end of the chapter, and we're just starting up like we did at the beginning. You know what? You gotta admit, you gotta love consistency. Hello, Wendy, he said, not noticing any difference, for he was thinking chiefly of himself. Am I shocked? No. And in the dim light, her white dress might have been the nightgown in which he had seen her first. Hello, Peter, she replied faintly, squeezing herself as small as possible. Something inside her was crying.
Woman! Woman, let go of me!
Hello, where's John? He asked, suddenly missing the third bed.
John's not here now, she gasped.
Is Michael asleep? He asked, with a careless glance at Jane. Yes, she answered, and now she felt that she was untrue to Jane as well as to Peter.
That's not Michael,
she said quickly, lest the judgment should fall on her. Peter looked. Hello, is this a new one?
Yes.
Boy or girl?
Girl.
Now surely he would understand, but not a bit of it.
Peter, she said, are you expecting me to fly away with you?
Of course, that's why I've come, he said, added a little sternly. Have you forgotten that it's spring cleaning? She knew it was useless to say that he had let many spring cleanings time pass. I can't come, she said apologetically. I've forgotten how to fly. Well, I'll soon teach you again.
Oh, Peter, don't waste your fairy dust on me.
She had risen, and now, at last, a fear assailed him. What is it? He cried, shrinking. I will turn up the light, she said, and then you can see for yourself. For almost the only time in his life that I know of, Peter was afraid. Don't turn up the light, he cried. Then she turned up the light, and Peter saw. He gave a cry of pain, and when the tall, beautiful creature stooped to lift him up in her arms, he drew sharply back. What is it? He cried again, and she had to tell him. I'm too old, Peter. I am so much more than 20. I grew up so long ago. You promised not to.
I couldn't help it. I'm a married woman, Peter.
No, you're not.
Yes, and the little girl in the bed is my baby.
No, she's not. But he supposed she was, and he took a step towards the sleeping child with his fist upraised. Of course he did not strike her, but he sat down on the floor and sobbed, and Wendy did not know how to comfort him, though she could have done it so easily. Peter continued to cry, and soon his sobs woke Jane. She sat up in bed and was interested at once.
Boy,
Jane said.
why are you crying?
Peter rose and bowed to her, and she bowed to him from the bed. Hello, he said.
Hello,
Jane said. My name is Peter Pan.
Yes, I know.
I came back for my mother, he explained, to take her to Neverland.
Yes, I know, Jane said. I've been waiting for you.
When Wendy returned definitively, she found Peter sitting on the bedpost, crowing gloriously, while Jane, in her nightie, was flying around the room in solemn ecstasy. She is my mother, Peter explained, and Jane descended and stood by his side, with the look on her face that he liked to see on ladies when they gazed at him.
He does so need a mother, said Jane.
Yes, I know, Wendy admitted rather forlornly. No one knows it so well as I. Goodbye, said Peter to Wendy, and he rose in the air, and shamelessly Jane rose with him. Wendy rushed to the window. No! No! She cried.
It's just for spring cleaning, Mother, Jane said. He wants me always to do his spring cleaning.
If only I could go with you, Wendy sighed.
You see, you can't fly,
said Jane. Of course, in the end, Wendy let them fly away together. Our last glimpse of her shows her at the window, watching them receding into the sky until they were as small as stars. As you look at Wendy, you may see her hair become white, and her figure little again, for all this happened long ago. Jane is now a common grown-up with a daughter called Margaret. And every spring cleaning time, except for when he forgets, Peter comes for Margaret and takes her to Neverland, where she tells him stories about himself, to which he listens eagerly. When Margaret grows up, she will have a daughter who is to be Peter's mother in turn, and so it will go on, so long as children are gay and innocent and heartless. The end. And that, my friends, is the end of Peter Pan by James M. Barrie. Wow, we have come such a long way since we started this book, and I have to say, I have a new appreciation for this book and this character. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Storytime Theatre adventure. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you all very soon. Bye!
Yes, I did